Good morning, my kindergarten dolphins. It is so good to see you today. We're going to begin today with some calendar. So let's get started. We're going to begin by talking about the date. Now, we said that yesterday was the second day of November. So we need to think about the number that is one more than 2. What is one more than 2? That's right, it's 3. So let's find our number 3. Okay, which number shows me 3? Is it my first, middle, or last number? It's my last number. Very good. So I'm going to add this to my calendar. It is the 3rd day of our month, and we are in a brand new month. Let's start with our months of the year song, and then maybe we'll remember what the name of our new month is. January, February, March, and April, May, June, July, and August, September, October, November, December. These are the months of the year. Okay, did you catch what month we're in right now? We are in the month of November. We started November this week, and now it is the 3rd day of the month. It is also a very special day. It is Election Day. So this is a day where we can go out to the polls to vote. The polls are where you would go to cast your vote, to write on your ballot and say which things you are choosing for our country, which president you want to elect, which laws you want to elect, maybe which new rules you want to see for your city. Those are all things that we can vote for because we live in a democracy. We're going to hear more about that and read about it in our story today for our journal entry. But before we get to that, let's finish up with our calendar. Just know that today is not only the 3rd of November, but also Election Day. We're going to talk about our days of the week next. Let's begin with our days of the week song. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, down to your knees. Thursday, down to your toes. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the days of the week. Now, what day of the week was it yesterday? Well, I remember that yesterday was the first day of the week. That means it was Monday. So I'm going to add that yesterday was Monday. Now, if yesterday was Monday, that means that today is Tuesday. Very good. Today is Tuesday. So if today's Tuesday, that means tomorrow will be Wednesday. Very nice. Now, hopefully you've already been filling in your calendar mat, but if not, take a moment now and add that. Remember, today is the 3rd, and today is no longer Monday, it is Tuesday. And I'm going to erase my weather report from yesterday, just in case the weather's different today. I'm also going to take a minute to fill out my date mat and change the date from the 2nd to the 3rd, and I'm going to do that on both sides. I've got my month written out here, November, and on the back I had my 11 showing that it is the 11th month of the year. Okay, I think we're ready to go over our weather report. So let's sing our weather song together. What's the weather? What's the weather? What's the weather like today? Tell me, kinder, what's the weather? What's the weather like today? What do we think? Well, I think that it feels pretty hot outside. Today feels pretty hot, hotter than it usually does in the fall. Remember, fall sometimes gets a little chilly, so I think that for a fall day, it feels pretty hot outside today. I also see that it looks sunny. So my weather report is that it is sunny and hot today. And now you can fill in your own weather report on your mat. Okay, we're going to get started with our story for today. We're going to head over to the library and hear today's story. Okay, so like I mentioned during our morning meeting video, we are going to be writing journal entries about stories we hear. So today, our story is Grace for President. Now, the reason that we're hearing this story today is because today is a very special and important day. Today is Election Day. Now, Election Day is a very important day because it's a day where we, as people who live in this country, get to cast a vote, get to say what we would like to see happen for the next few years. So sometimes we're voting for things like laws, and sometimes every 4 years, like we are today, we're voting for the president. We are casting a vote. We are saying who we would like our president to be. Now, in this story, this little girl decides that she wants to run for president, and we're going to hear about her doing that. So here is Grace for President, written by Kelly DiPuccio. So that's the author. Pictures by the illustrator is Liyuan Pham. And there's Grace. And here are some other presidents that we have had in the United States of America. One Monday morning in September, Mrs. Barrington rolled out a big poster with all of the president's pictures on it. Grace Campbell could not believe her eyes. Where are all the girls? That is a very good question, said Mrs. Barrington. The truth is, our country has never had a woman president. No girl president ever? Grace asked. No, I'm afraid not, said Mrs. Barrington. Grace sat at her desk and stewed. She was thinking really hard. No girls? Who'd ever heard of such a crazy thing? Finally, she raised her hand. Yes, Grace, I've been thinking it over. I'd like to be the president. Well, I think that is a star-spangled idea, Grace, said Mrs. Barrington. In fact, we can have our very own election right here at Woodrow Wilson Elementary. The snickering in the room stopped. Would anyone else like to run for president? Mrs. Barrington asked the class. Nobody raised their hand. Becoming president was going to be easy, Grace thought. So they're going to have their own election. Election is where people choose by voting. So Grace wants to become president, and her teacher is asking, is there anyone else who would like to run for president? Anyone else who would like to try? And then the classmates would vote, and they would elect their president. The next day, Mrs. Barrington made an announcement. In the name of democracy, I have invited Mr. Waller's class to join our election. Their class has nominated Thomas Cobb to be their presidential candidate. Now, democracy is a government that is run by the people who live in it. Ooh, that sounds like a fancy definition. But what it really means is that because they're all in this school, it would only be fair that other classes would also get a chance to also nominate, to choose somebody that they would like to have as their class president. So the teacher asked another class to join in the election. So now classmates can choose to vote for Thomas or Grace. And to nominate means that you choose that person, that you're going to suggest that that person be the person who would run. Grace's heart sank. Thomas was the school spelling bee champion. His experiments always took a blue ribbon at the science fair, and he was captain of the soccer team. Becoming president wasn't going to be so easy after all, Grace thought. The teacher put the names of all 50 states and the District of Columbia into a hat. Everyone except for Grace and Thomas got to choose a state. So here is a map of our country, the United States of America. There are 50 states. Remember, we live over here in California. So that is one of the states that make up our country. Their teacher put a name of every single state into a hat, and all of the classmates got to pick one. "I'm Texas," said Anthony. "I'm New Hampshire," said Rose. "I'm Michigan," said Robbie. "What does the number 17 mean?" Each state is assigned a number of electoral votes. That number is determined by how many people live in that state. Each of you will be a representative of your state. Oh, so some of the states have lots and lots of people living in them, and some of them have not as many people living in them. And if your state has lots and lots and lots of people living in it, then you get more votes. Altogether, our country has 538 electoral votes, Mr. Waller explained. On election day, the candidate who receives 270 electoral votes or more wins the election. "Why 270? asked Rose. "That's more than half of all of the electoral votes," Mr. Waller said. Becoming president really wasn't going to be so easy, Grace thought. So each of the classmates picked a state, and they're going to have that many votes for their state. So now, Grace needs to have 270 of the votes in order to win. Or Thomas needs to have 270 of the votes in order to win. So how are they going to win? Let's find out. Grace came up with a campaign slogan. When the presidential candidates campaign, that means that they're kind of explaining to everyone why we should vote for them. "Make history. Vote Grace Campbell for president." Thomas came up with his own campaign slogan. "Vote for Thomas Cobb, the best man for the job." Grace listened to what issues were important to the students, and she made a list of all of her campaign promises. A peaceful school, no bullies. A cleaner school, no littering. Better hot lunches, no more fish stick tacos. Thomas made up his own list of promises. Free tutoring, free soccer lessons, fish stick tacos every week. Grace made campaign posters and buttons. Thomas made campaign posters and buttons too. So they're letting the students know why they should vote for them. Each week, the teachers set aside time for the candidates to meet with their constituents. That means their supporters, the students that are supporting them, that said, "I'm going to vote for you." Polls were taken. Voters were making their choices. So polls are where you go and you put your vote in, where you would write, "I want to vote for Grace," or "I would want to vote for Thomas." Grace continued to campaign. At recess, she gave speeches. During lunch, she handed out free cupcakes. After school, she held rallies. Meanwhile, Thomas wasn't worried. He had cleverly calculated that the boys held slightly more electoral votes than the girls. So remember, each student picked a state. So Thomas thought, the boy states have more votes, so if all the boys vote for me, I can win. At recess, Thomas studied his spelling words. During lunch, he worked on his latest science experiment. And after school, he played soccer. He doesn't seem to be doing as much as Grace was doing. Even before the election, Grace made good on her promises. She joined the safety squad, she organized the school beautification committee, and she volunteered her time in the school cafeteria. Oh my goodness, she's worn out from all of her campaigning. In early November, Woodrow Wilson Elementary hosted a special Election Day assembly. That's today. Today is Election Day. Grace and Thomas took their places on stage as the school band began to play. Henry was the first representative to approach the microphone. The Yellowhammer State of Alabama cast 9 electoral votes for Thomas Cobb. Oh, so this student picked the state of Alabama, and they have 9 electoral votes. So remember, each state has a certain amount of votes based on how many people live in that state. Fletcher said, "The last frontier state of Alaska cast its 3 electoral votes for the best man on the job, Thomas Cobb." Ooh, this student had Alaska, and they only had 3 votes because not as many people live in Alaska. Hannah called out, "The Grand Canyon state of Arizona cast its 10 electoral votes for Grace Campbell." And so it went, state after state. They cast their electoral votes. The scoreboard in the gymnasium kept track of the totals. The voting demonstration was quickly coming to an end. Clara approached the podium. "The Badger State of Wisconsin cast its 10 votes for my best friend, Grace Campbell." Grace looked at the scoreboard. Thomas had 268 electoral votes. She had 267. There was only one state that was still unaccounted for: Wyoming. Remember, they need to get 270 or 271. Thomas grinned. Grace felt sick. Sam walked up to the microphone. He looked at Thomas. He looked at Grace. He looked down at Grace's handmade flag. Sam didn't say a word. "What are you waiting for?" Thomas whispered. The band stopped playing. All eyes were on Wyoming. Finally, Sam cleared his throat. Ahem. "The Equality State of Wyoming cast its 3 electoral votes for Grace Campbell." The gymnasium erupted in loud cheers and a few boos. Mrs. Barrington approached the podium. "With 270 electoral votes, the winner is Grace Campbell." Thomas looked stunned. Grace hugged Sam. "Why did you do it?" she asked. Sam handed Grace his flag. "Because," he said, "I thought you were the best person for the job." So even though Thomas was counting on all the boys to vote for him, Sam made his choice that he felt like Grace would be the best president. The following week, the students in Mrs. Barrington's class were preparing their career day presentations. Grace volunteered to go first. She stood at the front of the room and glanced at the posters hanging on the wall. "My name is Grace Campbell, and when I grow up, I'm going to be the President of the United States." This time, everyone believed that she would. The end. And there's a picture of Grace being the president in her future. Well, in this story, we learned a lot about Election Day, which is today. And we heard about somebody who didn't give up on their dream of what they wanted to be when they grew up. When Grace first told her classmates that she wanted to be president, they all kind of laughed and thought it was really silly. But Grace learned all about what it took to try and become a president, and she won the election at her school. So today, we're going to think about what we want to be when we grow up. There are so many different things that we can do when we get older to make the world a better place. So I want you to think about some of those things today. Let's go to the board and get started on our writing. Okay, so for your journals today, I have 2 options for you. If you have been practicing writing full sentences in your journal, here is a sentence starter you can use. Remember, we are writing about what we want to be when we grow up, just like we heard about in Grace for President. We heard about how Grace wanted to be president. So she practiced and learned about what it takes to do that, to help the world be a better place. So think about, how can you make the world a better place? What can you do when you're grown up that could be an amazing job to help the world? And you can use this sentence starter here. It says, when I grow up, I want to be a... So here's a sentence starter you can use. If you're not at the point of writing a sentence, so last week you were using the pages where you were practicing with labeling pictures and sounding out a word, that's okay too. I want your journal to be the best representation of your writing. You can come over here and you can just start your sentence with A. So maybe you want to be a firefighter. You can start with A, finger space, And then if you're not ready to write firefighter, that's okay. Draw me a picture. Think about those beginning sound labels that you worked on last week. So here are your two options for your journal entry today. Remember that we want to be superstar writers, which means we're challenging ourselves. So do what challenges you most. If it's writing a sentence, awesome. If it's drawing a picture and using some labels, awesome. Do whichever one works best for you, and I can't wait to see what you want to be when you grow up. I'll check in with you later. Bye!